Welcome to the Platypod channel. In today's video, I'll show you how to create stunning images of tasty food in 5 simple steps. From choosing the right backdrop to styling and lighting your food and adding some sparkle in Lightroom and Photoshop to create some really amazing images. And I'm also going to show you how I constructed this overhead rig, so make sure you stick around for that. Are you hungry yet? Well, I know I am, so let's get started. For today's photo shoot, I'm using my Nikon D750 camera with a 24-70 lens to get a wide-angle view. And I'm using the LumeCube Panel Pro to create constant light and a whole bunch of Platypod tools to create my shooting rig. I'll be tethering to Adobe Lightroom so I can immediately review my photos on a large screen and make changes whenever I need to. Now, every great photo starts with an awesome backdrop, which is why I've picked this rugged and rustic wooden tabletop. I love it because it's gritty, it's stained, and it's full of texture. It's all about creating layers with a variety of techniques. So on top of it, I place this darker wooden serving board because it contrasts really well with our backdrop, giving it an element of juxtaposition to the composition. That's where the main subject, our pepperoni pizza, will sit. I'm using some fresh tomatoes, garlic and basil to add color into the shot. I chose these because they're components of the food that I'm shooting, so it creates somewhat of a story within this one frame. Then I'll throw some flour and peppercorns over the top to create even more texture and atmosphere. Once I've created my backdrop, it's time to bring in the main character. Say hello to Mr. Pizza. This looks amazing, but unfortunately, food has a tendency to go cold and dry rather quickly. We'll have to deploy a range of tricks to keep it looking fresh and enticing. I'll use this little spray bottle with water to add some sparkle on the pizza itself and the tomatoes and the basil. They're just oozing with freshness now and look great, and the highlights accented by the water will convey freshness through the lens. There's a million little tricks you can use, like mixing water with glycerin to fix water beads in place, or cocktail sticks and makeup wedges to fix things so they don't move. Did you know that engine oil is often used as a stand-in for maple syrup? I wouldn't want to munch on those pancakes, that's for sure, eh? The easiest option to light your food is natural light. If you're lucky enough to have a large north-facing window, then that can yield great results because the window will act as a huge softbox, giving a balanced, soft light spread. I'm using a LumeCube Panel Pro today because I like to control my lights. I love shadows to add depth and dimension, so I'll direct the light with these 2 flags and a white reflector on the opposite side. This should give me a fairly even spread with nice shadows for a natural look. You can also use softboxes and umbrellas with strobes or shoot directly through a diffuser to soften the light, whatever your preference. The right kind of lighting will add depth, sharpness, and just about the right amount of highlights to create a sense of freshness and make your food look appetizing. It's important to allow the main subject to shine and not be overshadowed by the supporting actors. Keep that in mind when you're composing your shot. Props should add to the shot, not distract from your central subject. The point to make here is that it should be clear which element of the composition is the main focus. Shooting a slightly wider scene at high resolution can give you more control over composition and post-processing, especially when it comes to scale. I like to shoot a little bit wider, just so I have some cropping options afterwards. The final crop will depend on the intended use, usually something that's been decided before as part of your planning. It could be square or portrait for Instagram and social media, or it could be landscape for menus or websites, for example. You might also have to consider negative space for text. All of these things are super important when you plan your shoot. Let's have a look at our overhead camera setup. This is incredibly easy to put together and consists of a Platypod Extreme, a couple of platyballs, and 2 handles to extend the rig out. To fix it to my tabletop, I used an A-clamp that you can get from any hardware store. If you want to learn more about Platypod gear and the awesome variety of camera setups you can achieve, make sure to subscribe to this channel and give us a small thumbs up. Your support would be greatly appreciated. This Nikon D750 is tethered straight into Adobe Lightroom. And because I'm using constant light and a relatively slow shutter speed, I like to use a cable remote, just to make sure I avoid any motion blur and my images come out sharp. And before we get into editing the image, let's just have a look at the camera settings. The settings for the exposure are balanced at ISO 800 with an f-stop at 8 at 1/60th of a second. The focal length is set to around 36 millimeters. The histogram is spread nicely here, with no clipping, and because I'm shooting raw, I'll have full control over every single pixel when it comes to the edit. There's a very tasty looking pizza. Here's what we've learned today. We've set the scene by choosing a backdrop, added props and lighting to create an atmosphere, and used Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop to add the cherry on the cake. I want to see your images, so make sure you tag Platypod on Instagram and use the hashtag #postmyplatypod. And if you like this video, we have buttons specifically for you right here. Join the community over on Facebook to see what other Platypod users are up to, and ring the bell so you don't miss our regular videos. That, my friends, is all for today, and I'll see you next time.